Good morning.
Good morning.
If you have last week's bulletin, you will have the scriptures for today. If you don't, I guess we'll just have to do without it. Our lesson today is from Matthew, the 5th chapter, verses 1 through 6. Now, I think we all know this. This is not the whole of the passage, but we only have so much time, so we're going to break it up a little bit. This is, we all know, the Sermon on the Mount. Everybody knows the Sermon on the Mount. We've all heard it. Now, I am a child of the 60s. I was learning these things in high school and college from the mid-60s to the early 70s. And so the take I took on them was the one of that time, but I think it's time that we all re-examine these things and just see what is there, because it was a different time. I can remember what everybody was saying is if they wanted to talk about the Beatitudes, they said that's the attitudes to be. You remember that? I think we all heard about 1,700 sermons on the attitudes to be. And that's true. These things teach the attitudes that God wants us to have. But they call them the Beatitudes because the beginning of each one of these things is blessed are. And the Beatitudes means the blessings. And I think we have missed a lot of the understanding of blessing. We have watered it down a lot now. And back when I was in high school and college, there were a lot of new translations coming out that changed the word blessed to happy. That is definitely part of it. Young's literal translation, which is a real word for word, says happy, whereas other literals use the word blessed, because they are closely knit. But I think we need to look at the idea of the blessings that Christ is giving. Let us read Matthew 5, 1 through 6. Seeing the crowds, he went up on the mountain and he sat down. His disciples came to him. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. We use the word blessing very easily these days. And I think we don't sometimes get the full power. I think all of us remember the story of Jacob and Esau. Do you remember how Esau sold his birthright? But there was something else that was still his. The blessing from his father. And if you remember the lengths that Jacob went through to get that blessing, For us, blessing is something we say at the dinner table. Bless this food. And it just sort of rolls off our tongue, and it doesn't mean anything. But we see from that story of Jacob and Esau that these parents in the patriarchal age, they were given the right to give a blessing from God to their children. This was not just a God bless. It was God is going to give you these things. God is going to bless you with that. So the idea of a blessing was not a vague hope or just a word. It was a promise from God. And when we realize that this is the Son of the living God, and He is giving out these blessings, I think that gives us a deeper feeling for it. This is something that God is promising, and it means a lot. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I think that goes against everything that our world teaches. The poor in anything are bad. That's what we've been taught our whole lives. But here it says the poor in spirit. Now, what does that really mean? That's something that I think is confusing. Because we think of poor as something bad. But I want us to read Proverbs 16:19. So maybe we can understand what God is talking about here. Proverbs, the 16th chapter and verse 19. It is better to be of a lowly spirit with the poor than to divide the spoil with the proud. This is the typical Jewish poetry. And lowly spirit, poor in spirit, as opposed to proud. That's what it means. Now turn to Proverbs 29 and 23. One's pride will bring him low, but he who is lowly in spirit will obtain honor. These tell us that poor in spirit has a different meaning. It means the opposite of being proud. It means being humble, being able to understand that God is greater. Now I want you to turn to Isaiah 57 and verse 15. And we're going to really be dealing with the last part of the verse. For thus says the one who is high and lifted up, who inhabits eternity, whose name is holy. I dwell in the high and holy place, and also with him who is of a contrite and lowly spirit, to revive the spirit of the lowly, and to revive the heart of the contrite. Now we're going to read Isaiah 66. And get there, I'll figure out which one it is. Hard to read my own writing sometimes, so I have to check and make sure that I know which one it was that I was looking for. All these things my hand has made. This is the second verse of chapter 66. All these things my hand has made, and so all these things came to be, declares the Lord. But this is the one to whom I will look, he who is humble and contrite in spirit, and trembles at my word. That gives us an understanding, and I think it, for me, brought out something that I don't think that I had recognized before. We always think of these as things that Jesus said, and we don't really realize that he is just reiterating blessings that God had told his people. We forget sometimes that Jesus came to show people the reality in the old law, to bring out and show them what was real there, because over the years they had missed the real message of God's law and had forgotten it. But these were things that they should have known. They should have understood that. God loves those of a lowly spirit, those poor in spirit, those who are humble. So sometimes we need to look at the reverse. The poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Look at the reverse. The kingdom of heaven is not for the proud. You can't accept God when you think you're equal to him. That's one of the problems of our society today. We think we are equal to God. We're as good as anybody. We can make all of our own decisions. And we can't. We can make every decision. We can do that. The only problem is, what we choose doesn't change reality. You can choose to do whatever you want. You can choose to go the wrong way on a one-way street. But what you think doesn't matter. Have you ever done that accidentally? Gone the wrong way on a one-way street? I think most of us have. If you've ever driven in San Francisco or Portland, you probably have. Doesn't change the reality. You can make decisions and say, yeah, I did it. But it doesn't change the fact that there's a reality out there. We need to be poor in spirit and understand that our way and our thoughts don't count. It's God's way and God's thoughts that are important. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Did you ever think that you were blessed because sadness came into your life? Boy, that is not the way that we think, is it? That is just not. When we're mourned, when we have grief, we don't feel we're blessed, do we? Sometimes we feel we're cursed. God, why did you do this to me? Why me, Lord? Why not him? Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Have you ever had a broken heart, been just totally destroyed, and have somebody come up and put their hand on your shoulder and just take all that burden away? You felt better then than you did before you were even sad. That was a blessing because you were comforted. You were able to feel that comfort. You know, when we get married, we all believe that our mate loves us and cherishes us and will do everything for us. But we don't really understand it until that time when they comfort us. That's when we really know that they're there. You know, we don't, yep. They're there for me. They're there for me. But that's on faith. It's only when they comfort us, when everything has gone south. And I think most of us that have been married for any time have had some of those experiences where everything went wrong, the bottom fell out, there, couldn't get any worse. And your spouse grabs you and says, it'll be okay. It'll be all right. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Doesn't matter what happens to those who love God, because even in their saddest time, God is going to comfort them. He's going to take care of them. It's not the end. I can tell you that many times in my life, I have figured that I have messed up things so badly that it's the end. There, I can see no way out. It's just gone. The fact is that every time that I was destroyed at the bottom, and like I said, for my own stupidity, God said, no, it's not the end. And I was comforted. That's a tremendous blessing to know that no matter what happens to you, God will be there to pick up the pieces and comfort you. You know, some people are so into themselves that they have never felt comforted. Oh, I'm good. I don't need anything. I don't need that. You don't know a true blessing until you've been comforted. Isaiah 61, 1 through 4. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me. This is Isaiah 61, verses 1 through 4. Because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to those that are bound, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor, and the day of the vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, to grant to those who mourn in Zion, to give them a beautiful headdress instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, the garment of praise instead of a faint spirit, that they might be called oaks of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he may be glorified. As I said, these are things that had been promised before. What a wonderful thing to say that there's going to come a time that every single tear you ever shed will be turned into gladness. that instead of the ashes, and in those days you would put ashes on yourself when you were in mourning, instead of ashes, you would have the oil of gladness and a beautiful headdress. Isn't that a wonderful thought to think that someday all those sad things are going to be turned into gladness? I don't know how, but all those sad things, we'll see what happened. We'll see why they were important. We will be able to be comforted. There's a lot of things in my life that I really have no clue why they happened. I don't understand, and I don't think I ever will until God is there and shows me the plan. You know, they've said that tapestries are beautiful. Hearst Castle has some of the most beautiful tapestries you will ever see, woven with golden threads. They're beautiful to look at. But you know, you've never seen a tapestry hung up backwards. You know why? But they just plain ugly. They're ugly. All those knots and those weird strings and everything looks just terrible. Turn it around, and it's beautiful. When we get to heaven, our lives will be turned around, and we will see the beauty where we only saw sadness and heartache. Let's turn to John, the 16th chapter, and verse 20 through 22, I do believe. Truly, truly, I say to you, you will weep and lament, but the world will rejoice. You will be sorrowful, but your sorrow will turn into joy. When a woman is giving birth, she has sorrow because her hour has come. But when she has delivered the baby, she no longer remembers the anguish for joy that a human being has been born into the world. So also you have sorrow now, but I will see you again, and your hearts will rejoice, and no one will take your joy from you. That's a promise. That's a blessing. And what a beautiful explanation. Those of you who are young may not understand that illustration. Every woman that has ever given birth understands it absolutely. And any man that ever had to be in the delivery room and get their hand broken and yelled at understands too. They understand that. And for those of you that are young and don't get it, let me explain something. If it wasn't for the joy that a woman gets in seeing that baby, there would only ever be one child in a family. I can guarantee you. But the pain and the sorrow is washed away by the joy. That's something that God has promised us. Now we come to another one that I think is difficult for us. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. This blessing is, from beginning to end, hard to understand. One is the word meek. We really don't use the word meek anymore, do we? In fact, it's almost a bad word. Meek means timid, cowardly. That's not what it means, but when we hear it, is that what goes through our mind? Casper milquetoast? Somebody who's a cowardly rabbit? That's not what meek means. One translation has it as gentle. And I think that fits better. We understand that word to meaning it better than the word meek. We understand that gentle. Because blessed are the gentle, for they shall inherit the earth. Now, I want us to understand some of that. He didn't say, blessed are the gentle, for they shall conquer the earth. Blessed are the gentle, for they shall deserve the earth. But blessed are the meek, the gentle, and they shall inherit the earth. The strong try to conquer the earth. They try to take things. They try to make them their own. But what this is saying is God gives the gentle the earth. They don't have to work for it, earn it. It's amazing how many people live their lives gathering up toys. If you go into a lot of people's garages and you lift up the garage door, you're going to see a lot of things in there. But you know what you're going to see on those things? And an awful lot of them? Dust. There's the scooter that they never learned to ride. That's me. There's that jet ski that they took out once and never went back. There's that tent that never even got open and it's still in the box. They didn't enjoy the things. They bought things. They used their strength to get things, but they never had that joy. This past week, Debbie and I stood in the water in Galveston for about 20 minutes. Didn't cost a thing. Just stood there and had that warm water brush over and go back because we were enjoying what we already had. God gave us this beautiful earth. He gave us all these things. And when we realize we don't have to get them, they're already ours, and just enjoy the things. Only the gentle can enjoy the earth that God has given us. When you try to be, I'm going to get, I'm going to do, you're going to end up with a garage full of dusty toys and a heart without memories. But when you are meek and gentle, and you go outside, and you watch the leaves change, you see the birds come down, you'll realize that God already gave you more than Howard Hughes ever got. He ended his life scared, paranoid, and alone. smell of the trees, they see the breeze, and they know that God gave them everything. We'll also look at Psalm 37:11 for that one. Psalm 37 and verse 11. But the meek shall inherit the land and delight themselves in abundant peace. I think that helps to understand it, is that what God gives us is abundant peace. We don't need to have everything. We already have all the things that God has given us. I think I'm going to stop there today and not do verse 6. I just wanted us to re-look at some of these things. This isn't a fiery lesson or any of those things. But what it is I want us to re-look at these blessings that God has given us, that we can count on. God never said he was going to bless me with a mansion. But you don't have to be rich to take all these blessings. There's a piece of property in Branson. It's almost directly across the street from our timeshare. And every time we go by, we go, boy, I'd love to have that piece of property. It's 58 acres, and it goes right back to Lake Taneycomo. And I don't have $3.5 million to buy that. And if I did have $3.5 million to buy it, I wouldn't spend it on that. There'd be a paid-off church building and a few other things that would be done. It would not be spending $3.5 million on that. But you know what? We get to look at that property and see its beauty